Hi everyone, and welcome back to my channel. This is the Planning Mimsy, and today I have two product tests for you. Now, my camera is low on battery, so I'm going to go ahead and film this introduction, and then we'll do the actual test tomorrow when we have better light and when I have actual camera battery. But today I'm going to be testing out for us the Faber Castell Gelatos, and I have three of their metallic colors here. I have metallic grape, metallic blueberry, and champagne gold. And then almost, I don't know, as a contrast or alongside, I'm going to be testing out the silky crayons that I got a while back from Five Below. So these are the tools that I'm going to be using today or tomorrow, I guess, that I wanted to show you based on a couple of videos that I've watched. And by the way, I want to give credit where credit's due. So I'm going to link all of the videos that I watched prior to this to get inspiration for what I'm going to show you down below in the description box. But I'm going to be using a spray bottle, and that just has water in it. I'm going to be using my water brush and three different paint brushes that I usually use with watercolors. So a broad brush to wet paper, a round brush, and an angled brush as well. I'm going to be testing this out on 4 different types of paper. The first is a coloring book. It's actually a doodle book that I have, but I thought we would see how it did coloring things in. I'm also going to be testing it out on mixed media paper, which is where I will do the swatches for this, and watercolor paper because these are water soluble, so it'll be nice to see how they react to the watercolor paper. And then, of course, the metallics and the whites I'll be testing out on black paper. And this is a Pentalic notebook that I got in a oh goodness, now I can't think of the box. Now I can't think of the name of the box, but I'll actually link my unboxing in the cards above when I remember what it's called. So let me go ahead and get set up. My battery's about to die, and then first thing in the morning, we'll get started on this demo. Okay, so it is the next day, and I have a much more charged battery, and I've got all the supplies that I talked about in the intro pulled out. So let's start with, I guess, the swatches of these things, and I'm just going to use this mixed media, the Strathmore mixed media paper. I like it for things like swatches. It's a good paper to use. So let us do that. Okay. So I'm going to start with the 3 gelatos. I figure these are, so I ended up purchasing these because, as you saw in the June Plan With Me, my monthly theme is galaxy and stars and night sky. So I thought these would be really cool to use in that kind of monthly spread. So these are metallic. This is metallic blueberry. It's a lot brighter, I guess, than I anticipated. Yeah, you can definitely, I don't know if it's showing up on the video, but in person you can definitely see the shimmer in the color. This is metallic grape, okay? And then I also got champagne gold. I thought these would all go really nice with each other. Okay, so like I said in the introduction, I did some research on these before I decided to film this video, and I'm gonna link down in the description box below the people that I got that information from so that you can look at their videos. Their videos are going to include some things that I'm not going to show because I don't have some of the tools that they have. Some of them use a die cutting machine or like mini spritzers, and all I have is this spritzer. So you should definitely check out their videos for more information. So these are water soluble, and oh wow, and they blend out actually not bad at all. In some of the videos that I was watching, they weren't blending out quite as smoothly, And even now you can still see kind of the residue from where I originally applied the color. But that's a nice bit of spread there just from that one thing. All right, let me rinse that off. And I just realized that my recording device is right next to my thing of water. So let me move my thing of water. So let's see what the purple does. But even with the residue, like if you are not looking to spread the color, if you're just looking to kind of smooth it out within where you have placed the original color, it actually does that quite nicely. I think, considering that these are crayons, I guess, these are loose crayons, I think it works well together. It's not wanting to come off my brush though, that's for sure. Oh, but I guess it is. Okay, well, let's do the gold then. That's not bad. I mean, the gold is probably, it's not doing, I think, as great of a job smoothing over that color as the other two did, but it's also a lighter color. So yeah, okay, so you can see right here where it is not actually blending out the original application of the color, which I was expecting. So it's not actually blending out that color, so if you're going to apply directly to paper, be aware that it's going to do that. That being said, that is a really smooth blend. It spreads really well and it dries really fast. So there it is. So there's that. Okay, so now I want to do the same swatches, but with these Art 101 silky crayons. I got them from Five Below, which is like a Dollar Tree. And I know nothing about these except that I wanted to see if these could be a cheaper alternative, honestly, to the gelatos. So I picked them up. I think they were like $5. They were relatively inexpensive. And I just got these in the regular colors. So you can see that I've added the black, I'm adding a brown, and there comes two browns, a reddish brown and then a brown. Let's do a purple. We'll compare the purple. And then let's do some of these brighter colors, a nice hot pink. So right off the bat, these actually color out more smoothly than the gelatos did, and I think that's because these are actually meant to be more like crayons than the gelatos. And oh, they blend out very similarly to the gelatos. In fact, they might even be a little bit more water soluble. You can still see the same residue that's being left behind, maybe even a little bit more pronounced than with the gelatos. But I mean, it's still a nice smooth spread. You get a lot of spread for the color that you've put down. I'm not mad about it. Let's see how the purple compares. Okay, so the purple is not as, you don't get as much coverage as you do with the gelato, which again, these are cheaper, so definitely to be expected. But again, I mean, look at that. Look at how much coverage you get. And I'm not talking about thickness of coverage. I'm just talking about, I guess, distance, how far the distance of these things goes. All right, the pink. Okay, so the pink is much lighter than anything else that we've laid out, and I don't know if it's having trouble spreading because it's so light and I'm just not seeing it. It's showing up actually on the camera though, or if it's because I laid it down and then went back and did all these other things so it's had time to dry. Okay, so that's just kind of a taste of how both of these products look swatched out. They're all water soluble, and you can definitely paint with them. However, just be aware again that they're going to leave this residue behind from where you laid down the original color. Okay, so let's take a look at, while that dries, let me pull out my black paper and we'll do something similar with the white crayon, maybe this neon pink, and then of course the gelatos. Okay, so I said I couldn't remember what the name of the box was where I got this notebook in, and I remembered about an hour after my camera died last night. I got this in a well-inked box, which is a Canadian subscription box. It's an art box that you get quarterly. And this came actually in my very first box, along with like a Posca paint marker and a jelly roll, and then like a white gel pen. I think it was like the Uniball Signo or something to that effect. I don't use this as often as I would like, and I think it's because I'm not really comfortable yet drawing freehanded on some things, and I definitely need to get more comfortable using colors that show up on the black. Okay, so I've put the gelatos down. They are really vibrant on this paper, and I think that is so cool. Okay, and oh wow, they blend out a lot better on the black paper. In fact, all that residue is not even there. I mean, it's there a little bit, but it really isn't. However, the problem is, and I don't know, there, yeah, you can see it in the light. It almost disappears completely, but then it shows up in the light. That's actually a pretty cool effect. I don't know how useful it would be like in my artwork, because I do have metallic watercolors for that type of thing. And the same thing's happening with the blue. So it almost disappears, but then shows up in the light. That's pretty interesting. And the purple is doing the exact same thing. So they show up pretty vibrantly on the black paper. And then of course you can blend them out. They leave less residue. I don't know how well you can tell that on the camera, but there is not the same kind of residue as there was on the white paper. Yeah, you can see like a major difference in the way those blended out. Let's see how the white shows up. So this is the Art 101, what are they called? Silky crayons. So I'm just gonna do the white, and I'm gonna do that for comparison, that neon pink, to see if it, yeah, the neon pink's not even showing up. Oh, I guess that was gonna happen, but just so you can see the comparison, it's that shiny area that has no color to it whatsoever. But the white shows up, so I guess we ought to blend that out and see how these blend out on this paper. Okay, yeah, I mean, it's doing a really nice job again blending out, but again, on the black paper, the more you blend it out, the more it actually disappears. And I presume that's because we're spreading out the vibrant color on the thing. But you can see that the gelatos leave this really interesting, sparkly leave behind, I guess, if you will. Okay, so there are a number of things that you can do with the gelatos. I'm not going to go through everything, but again, I am linking 3 different videos down below for you to check out if you want to know more about the gelatos. But what I thought that we would do is we would test out a couple of things that I saw people doing in their in the variety of videos, and play a little bit with these different colors. So what I have here is just watercolor paper. It's a watercolor pad from Master's Touch. And we're just going to start with, I'm going to do some of the gelatos. So watercolor paper is textured, and I hope the camera is picking up that texture. Let me zoom in a little bit. Yeah, so you can see that it's not filling in all of the cracks or all of the texture within this watercolor paper. And one of the ways that you can kind of play with that and not mess with it, but like alter it so that it does what you want it to do, is to blend it, smooth it out with your finger. So let's just do that with these gelatos first. And you can see that this is blending out much more smoothly than it was when I did with the water. I'm not getting as much coverage at all, but I'm getting a much nicer blend out of that original application of the color. So definitely not as much coverage as we saw with the water. So the water allowed it to be spread out over almost half the page, whereas just blending with my fingers allowed it to mix together quite nicely and create almost a patchwork. So let's do the same test with some of these silky crayons. So again, these are smoother than the gelatos. I'm definitely getting more of the crayon down in the texture of this particular paper. And I'm just using some different colors because we already used some of the other darker, cooler colors. So I want to try some different colors and see how they blend together. All right, let's do this finger test here for this one. Okay, so right off the bat, this is harder to blend. This is much harder on my finger to get the same kind of blend that I was getting with the gelatos. However, I feel, actually that yellow is really hard to blend. I feel like with a little bit of elbow grease, you can get the same kind of blend effect that you get with those. And to be quite honest, I'm really happy with how these silky crayons are blending together. It creates kind of a nice, almost rainbow effect. Now, I want to test something out real quick. Let me get a regular gel pen. So this is just a black gel pen that I got from Wish. It's nothing fancy at all. I applied some of the silky crayon to a bullet journal a while back and tried to write on top of it, and it didn't go as well as I would have imagined. So I wanted to try, now that I've blended these out, to write. Yeah, the same problem. It won't hold on to the ink because it's got that silky texture on top. Okay, so I imagine that maybe to write over these, I'd need to use maybe a paintbrush and some ink. Definitely something to play with. Okay, here's what I want to do now. I'm actually going to this time start with the silky crayons. So again, these are water soluble. Oh, and here's the other thing. Where are they? Wet wipes. And I'm trying to find a better alternative for these that is a little more friendly to the environment. But one of the great things about the gelatos and the silky crayons is that they come right off your fingers with a wet wipe. And this wet wipe is juicy. So yeah, you can just see it's picking it up right off. And the other thing you can do is you can use the wet wipe also to blend, and you can see that it is already, it spreads out the color further. It also lightens the color. So if you have too dark of a color, you can use a wet wipe to darken that or lighten that color out. The risk you run, however, and you can see that right here on this paper, is that if you're not careful about where you're moving your colors, it will turn into a muddy color. So that gold is really almost no longer gold, it's a mud. And you can see the mud down here. But if you look here, these colors are still quite bold and friendly. Friendly? I don't think colors, can they be friendly? I don't know. Okay, so let's apply some more of this silky crayon down here on the same page. And I am going to blend it out a little bit with my finger. That's a nice vibrant blue. I really like that blue. I think it's nice and it's a good blue. And then you spritz it down with water, and you can immediately see the effect. That blue is now so much more spreadable. And oh man, I'm actually getting a good deal. Look at that, look at that. Now I'm running into the same problem I did originally, which was, I don't know if you can tell. Yep, you sure can. This is the original spot where I applied the color, and now that I've applied the water, everything is spreading out much further, but I have the same problem where that original spot is showing up a lot darker with a lot more ink on it than everything else. Okay, so I'm going to remove this blue from my finger. It comes right off. It's completely gone. And I'm gonna move on to another paper. Okay, so and I apologize, I just kicked the camera. The other thing that you can do with this that I've seen a couple of different people do, and I would be interested to try it on two different surfaces. So let me get another surface if I have one readily available. I don't think that I do. Is that you can use an acrylic block as a palette. Okay, so if you have an acrylic block, you know that it comes with these grid lines, and if you look on one side, if you play with it, you can feel the grid lines. You don't want to use that side. You want to use the completely smooth side, because you can get the gelato in those crevices and it will not be pretty. So what you essentially do is you apply some of the gelato to the acrylic block, and I can already tell you have to press down a little bit harder to get these onto the acrylic block than I did to have to get it onto paper, and I presume that's because of the smooth surface of the acrylic block. And but that's fine because we're not actually going to be using this acrylic block. Okay, so what I saw people do is they would get water, and I'm just using a water brush again, and you just pick up the color off of the acrylic block. Okay, and let me zoom in. Okay, so that's picking up pretty nicely. And then you just paint with it, and it goes down much more like a watercolor paint. If you can't, I hope you can tell, but that blue is a lot lighter now that I'm using this much water with it and applying it like it were a watercolor. It's still a nice blue, and I'm going to be interested to see when it dries if that metallic is still there. And so let's just see how the purple does. Again, this is really easy to pick up with water, with a water brush or with any kind of wet paintbrush. Nice and easy to pick up and apply to the paper. And again, that blue is already dry. That dries really fast. Although I did get sprinkles, not sprinkles, glitter, sparkles all over my finger. All right, and then lastly we have the gold. The gold is nice and vibrant. I imagine that the more I paint, you can get a lighter color with that. And the only problem I'm seeing here, which I did not see when I applied these particular gelatos directly to the paper, was, oh, actually I take that back. I take it back. I don't know if you can see it on camera, but the metallic, the sparkle is actually still there. That's pretty cool. And then of course I just wipe the color off onto the wet wipe. Okay, so those are the techniques that I was shown in the other videos. But now I wanted to explore a couple of other techniques, particularly ones that I tend to use. So the first thing I wanted to do was I wanted to actually wet the paper down. This is a watercolor paper, and when I paint with watercolors, a lot of times I will wet my paper first and then apply the color. So I thought we would do that and see how the gelato reacts in that kind of situation. So I've applied that, and I'm gonna apply one color of each. So we'll apply the blue. Okay, it's going on much more smoothly than it did the first time, and you can see that it's filling up those crevices a lot better than it did the first time. And let's, I thought I'll use the water brush. And then if I blend this out, ooh, do you see that? Do you see how it's snaking? How it's taking that water and the water's just pulling it? That's really cool. Okay, so you can still get the far and wide spread, but I love how it's branching off. Let me zoom you in. I don't know if it'll pick up this detail, but it is like showing off almost roots. The water is pulling the paper, or the water's pulling the color, excuse me, as I spread it across. Very nice. Still though, the same problem as before with that initial block of color where I applied it being stuck there. Let's see about the silky crayon. Much smoother again. I presume the water is helping to transfer that color around the paper. Same pulling effect, only much more so. I think these have a little bit more of, I don't know, they react a little better to the water. Again, same thing, nice smooth blend, but you still have that original block of color. Okay, so that's typically how I apply the watercolors that I do. There is one more test that I wanted to do with you all that while we're here. I didn't pick up, I've had this for a while. This is a coloring book that I have had for a long time, and it, I don't know, I like it. I use it a lot I don't know, it's just fun. It's creative ideas for inspiration. So I thought we'd open up to a page and we'd look to see how well this colors kind of on a coloring page. So this is a creative notebook. So it's got a lot of drawing ideas. Actually, let's do this one. Okay, so this one says fill the sky with balloons. And it's, let me zoom you out so you can see the whole page. So it's a 2-page spread. You have a tree and you have like a mountainous area, and then it says fill the skyline with balloons. So we won't fill it because we're just testing these out, but I want to use the acrylic block again, which I'll put right here, and I'm actually going to pull out a fine liner. My fine liners are underneath my watercolors right now. So I'm going to pull out my box of fine liners here. And I'm pulling these out because these are waterproof. And since I'm applying things on with water, with like a watercolor type substance, I want to be able, I don't want that ink to smudge. So I'm just going to draw a couple of balloons here, and we'll just test out. That's a horrible looking balloon. We will just test them out. So I got 3 balloons there. We'll give them little tails. Okay, so let's use, I've already used the blue a lot, so let's set the blue aside, let's set the gold aside, and we'll apply some of the purple to this block, and we'll use the gelato purple, and then I will use, let's use the blue silky crayon, and let's use the orange silky crayon. Okay, so where did I put that brush? There it is. I pulled up a couple of watercolor brushes too, but I'm really only using the water brush, which is fine. Okay, so you can see that I'm pulling up the color. I don't know. Okay, that's fine. And we'll just, let's see how well this colors inside the lines here. I'm still learning how to paint inside the lines, so I'm not going to get it perfect. I'll go ahead and tell you that now. It's not doing a bad job. It's applying the color fairly evenly throughout the balloon. It's not picking up the ink, of course, because I plan it that way. But it's a nice bright color, a nice awesome color. Let's see how the silky crayons do. Let me zoom in just a little bit. Okay, so I feel like the silky crayons, and this again might just be the nature of the color because the gelatos that I picked up were not your average colors. They are for sure the metallic colors, so they definitely have a little shimmer to them and are generally lighter speaking. But here, I think the color is brighter than the gelatos were. And the other thing I noticed as I put this down on the paper, these dry really fast. And I know I said that before, but I noticed, and I think, yeah, the camera is picking it up really nicely. When I was coloring with the blue, and actually the yellow too, I missed a spot and went back to get it, but the paint, or the gelato around it had already dried, and so you can see a little bit of differentiation of color. Okay, so that's just, I mean, I said quick, but this is a 20-minute video now. That's a little brief tutorial on both the gelatos and the silky crayons from Five Below. I think they're both going to be a lot of fun to play with, and I'm definitely planning on using at least the gelatos in some July spreads, since they do fit in quite nicely with my theme. Thank you all for joining me. If you liked this video, go ahead and give it a like down below and hit that subscribe button if you'd like to see more videos like this.